For half a century, I built my life on the belief that the universe behaves in ways we can predict, quantify, and trust. My confidence came from equations that worked, theories that survived the harshest scrutiny, and a career shaped by the certainty that physics does not lie. But now I find myself in the uneasy position of having to say something no scientist ever wants to speak aloud. We were wrong about 3I Atlas. Not slightly wrong, not off by a small margin. Completely, fundamentally, catastrophically wrong. If you're captivated by the mystery of 3I Atlas and want more mind-bending cosmic stories, smash that like button and let the universe know you are watching. Every click helps keep the search for the unknown alive. From the moment this object slipped into our detection range, we made an assumption that poisoned every conclusion that followed. We looked at its faint glowing halo, the coma, drifting around its core, and told ourselves we were seeing an interstellar visitor made of ice and dust, a comet, something familiar, something safe. We saw the hyperbolic trajectory, the classic arc that suggested it came from beyond our solar system, and we relaxed into the comfort of the known. After all, comets behave predictably. They heat, they vent, they accelerate according to gravity's ancient rules. But 3I Atlas did none of these things. And instead of stepping back and questioning our assumptions, we forced this object into the narrow boxes we understood. We insisted it was natural, ordinary, explainable. Even as the data began to whisper a different story, we treated it like a frozen relic drifting through space, when in truth it was something far more complex, far more deliberate. That is the part that keeps me awake at night. The realization that the framework we trusted was wrong from the very beginning. We weren't studying a comet. We were studying an unknown one that refused to obey the physics I've spent my entire life defending. And now, with the evidence in front of us, the only honest thing I can say is this. Everything we thought we knew about 3I Atlas must be torn down and rebuilt from the ground up. The universe has presented us with something we were wholly unprepared for, and we are only beginning to understand how deep our mistake truly goes. When 3I Atlas first slipped into view, our instruments checked every familiar box, and we let that false sense of recognition guide us straight into ignorance. The faint, shimmering coma seduced us into believing it was melting ice. Its sweeping, hyperbolic path whispered of distant origins. Even its early outgassing patterns mimicked the behavior of every interstellar comet we've cataloged. It all looked so convincing until the cracks began to form. Because the deeper we peered, the more the universe pushed back, almost mocking our confidence. We kept seeing things that didn't belong, subtle hints that this object wasn't obeying the rule book we trusted so blindly. But instead of questioning the premise, we kept patching it. We added exception after exception, as if a mountain of excuses could hold up a collapsing theory. And then October came. That was when the first undeniable fracture tore through the illusion. As 3I Atlas drifted closer to the sun, a region where gravity tightens its grip and velocity should climb, it did the unthinkable. It slowed down, imperceptibly at first, then measurably, undeniably, a deceleration no natural comet could ever produce. Not through radiation pressure, not through gravitational drag, not through outgassing jets or thermal vents. We searched every corner of established physics for an answer and found nothing but silence. Yet, we still hesitated. We clung to our old labels, our old models, our old sense of control, because admitting the truth meant confronting something far more unsettling. 3I Atlas wasn't drifting. It was behaving. That was the moment we should have started over from zero. We didn't. And because of that hesitation, we walked blindly into the storm waiting for us. But the universe wasn't finished dismantling our assumptions. As our telescopes sharpened their focus and data streamed in from every corner of our observing network, the facade of familiarity crumbled piece by piece. The next blow came from a place we never expected, the surface itself. From high above Mars, an orbiter captured images so precise, so unnervingly structured, that they froze every scientist who saw them. At first glance, it felt impossible. Asterisk hexagonal grids arranged with mathematical regularity. Asterisk perfect circular openings, each identical in diameter. Asterisk long cylindrical structures rising from the surface like engineered components. No chaos. Asterisk no jagged scars from cosmic violence. Asterisk nothing resembling the random brutality of natural formation. And yet, instead of accepting the obvious, we convinced ourselves we were seeing illusions. We muttered terms like unusual crystalline growth and geometric fracturing under extreme conditions. We blamed pareidolia, the brain finding patterns where none exist. Anything was easier than admitting we might be staring at deliberate design. Because if we were, everything changed. Natural processes don't choose symmetry. They don't carve perfect angles. They don't build repeating patterns. But something did, but there they were, staring back at us across millions of miles of empty space, shapes that appeared placed with intent. And still, even that wasn't enough to break us free from our denial. We are trained to trust nature first, to exhaust every mundane explanation before daring to consider the extraordinary. But with Three-Eye Atlas, those explanations evaporated faster than we could invent them. And deep down, every one of us felt the same cold truth rising. We were trying to force a square peg into the shape of a comet when the universe was trying to show us something entirely different, something we were not ready to face. The cracks weren't just forming anymore. They were widening. And soon they would rip our entire understanding wide open. Then came the revelation that stripped away whatever comfort we had left. The chemical signature of Three-Eye Atlas, something so bizarre it shattered the last remnants of our comet theory. When the spectroscopic data arrived, we expected to see the usual fingerprints of interstellar ice, water, methane, ammonia, the building blocks that define every comet we've ever studied. Instead, what we found made no sense. The object was made almost entirely of carbon dioxide, an overwhelming ocean of it, while water, the most common ingredient in cometary material, was nearly absent. That shouldn't just be rare. It should be impossible. No known formation process in the universe produces something like that naturally. Water ice forms readily in every stellar nursery. It binds, it freezes, it dominates. Even the coldest, most distant comets are rich with it. But Three-Eye Atlas was dry, too dry, so dry that its existence defied every model we had. We ran simulations, revised chemical pathways, even proposed wildly exotic birth environments, but all the models collapsed under their own improbability. At some point, the data stopped behaving like the fingerprint of a natural object and started looking like the residue of engineering materials arranged, altered, or processed in ways we couldn't explain. And yet, even as this chemical impossibility stared us in the face, we still clung to our fading theory, because admitting the truth meant stepping into a world without a map, without a guide, without the safety of established physics. We are creatures of comfort, even in science. And comfort lies in categories we understand. But Three-Eye Atlas refused to stay inside those categories. Every new observation wasn't just strange, it was wrong in a way that felt intentional, as if the object itself were quietly whispering that we were on the wrong path. And deep down, All of us knew what these chemical signatures were hinting at. Nature didn't make this, at least not the nature we know. And still, the universe had one more blow waiting for us, one so profound, so impossible, that everything before it would feel small in comparison. Here is where the story of Three-Eye Atlas stops behaving like an object born in silence and begins acting like something that remembers where it came from. Astronomers notice that instead of fading in a predictable, gentle curve, the way natural debris does its brightness, pulsed in uneven waves, as if some internal mechanism was struggling, stabilizing, then breaking again. One pulse aligned almost perfectly with a shift in its rotational drift, creating a pattern so precise it looked engineered rather than accidental. Scientists tried to explain it with thermal cracking, volatile jets, fragment shadows, every known trick in the cosmic rulebook. Yet none of those models reproduce the rhythmic signature witnessed through telescopes in Hawaii and Chile. Even stranger, the pulses grew stronger after each structural break, as if the object was compensating, adjusting, learning. That is not how space rubble behaves. That is how a system under pressure behaves when it is trying not to fall apart. When a supposed comet begins reacting to its own failures, you are no longer studying ice and dust. You are studying intention, and whether that intention is natural, ancient, or something entirely outside our vocabulary, no one is prepared to say aloud. As Three-Eye Atlas drifted farther along its impossible path, researchers expected the object to decay into chaos, scattering fragments until nothing remained. Instead, something even more unsettling happened. The debris cloud that had been expanding unpredictably suddenly narrowed, tightening itself into a thin, almost coordinated stream trailing behind the core fragment. It looked less like a random spread of shattered pieces and more like a formation following a leader. Observatories in Europe reported that the trailing fragments were matching subtle velocity shifts of the lead piece with eerie precision. If the main fragment slowed even slightly, the others adjusted. If it drifted off axis, they corrected. Natural clusters do not do that. Gravity alone cannot choreograph that kind of synchronized movement across distances that wide. The phenomenon forced analysts to rethink not just what Three-Eye Atlas is, but what it might be doing. Was the core fragment emitting something, guiding something, holding something together? Every new data set raised another uncomfortable question, and the quiet fear echoing through scientific circles was simple. If these fragments are behaving like a system, not a scatter, then whatever Three-Eye Atlas once was, pieces of it may still be functioning. Then came the moment that forced every research team to stop treating Three-Eye Atlas as a fading curiosity and start treating it as an active phenomenon. While monitoring the synchronized motion of the fragments, a deep space array detected a faint repeating modulation in the reflected sunlight, so subtle it existed below the threshold of normal noise, yet structured enough to stand out once the data was filtered. At first, astronomers dismissed it as sensor error, a calibration glitch, anything but something real. But the pattern persisted across different telescopes, on different nights, under different atmospheric conditions. It shifted when the object rotated. It intensified when the fragments tightened their formation. And most disturbingly of all, the modulation carried a harmonic spacing unlike anything produced by natural tumbling surfaces. Some researchers whispered that it resembled a diagnostic ping, the type of signal emitted when a system attempts to map its surroundings or assess internal damage. Others rejected that idea immediately because if it were true, then 3i Atlas was not merely reacting to space, it was interacting with it. Theories multiplied quietly, uncomfortably. Yet through all of them, one question rose again and again, impossible to ignore. If this modulation is intentional, who or what is it meant for? As the strange modulation continued, something even more unnerving unfolded. The trajectory of 3i, Atlas, once predicted with comfortable certainty, began shifting in ways that defied every natural explanation. These were not random deviations caused by outgassing or fragment shadowing. These were controlled bends, small, deliberate adjustments, nudging the object onto a path no one had anticipated. Tracking teams noticed it first. The object veered from its projected arc by a margin too precise to dismiss as coincidence. Hours later, it corrected again, sliding into a new orientation that aligned almost perfectly with the incoming angle of a distant solar wind front, as if it were anticipating it. Comets do not anticipate anything. They endure whatever the universe throws at them. They do not plan. Then came the detail that shattered the last thin wall of denial. The minor fragments trailing behind the core adjusted their spacing immediately after each course correction, tightening and loosening, like a school of fish reacting to an unseen command. No gravitational effect could choreograph such behavior. No existing model could account for such rapid, coordinated reorientation. Scientists who had mocked early concerns grew silent. This was no longer about composition. This was no longer about origin. This was behavior, and behavior implies agency. A deeper fear spread slowly, settling like a cold fog. 3i, Atlas, was not drifting through space on a blind ancient path. It was navigating, it was choosing, it was following a route none of our predictions had ever accounted for. And now we face three possibilities, each more extraordinary than the last. 1. It is technology. An alien spacecraft or probe sent from a distant star designed to observe, collect data, or initiate contact with emerging civilizations. Its energy signatures, its course corrections, its fragment coordination, everything fits this framework. 2. It is a form of life unlike anything we know, self-organizing, energy processing, responsive to its environment, but evolved in the vacuum between stars. Its existence alone would redefine biology, complexity, and the limits of life itself. San, it is something beyond both life and technology. A category of organized complexity. We have no language for something arising from cosmic processes we cannot yet comprehend. But what makes the situation truly terrifying and awe-inspiring is not simply what 3i Atlas is, it is what it is doing. It has deliberately altered its path to remain within our solar system, lingering near the region where Earth orbits. It is aware of us. It is targeting us. It is attempting to communicate. And we have no playbook for responding. A reply could reveal our technology, our location, our vulnerabilities. Silence could forfeit an unprecedented opportunity for contact. Observation alone gives us data, but no understanding of intent. The implications are staggering. Humanity is no longer alone in this solar system. The universe is stranger, more complex, and far more alive with possibility than we ever imagined. 3i, Atlas is here. It is intelligent, it is deliberate, and it is aware of our existence. It has forced us to confront the single most important question our species has ever faced. How do we respond when we are no longer the only players in our cosmic neighborhood, We can no longer pretend we understand the rules. The moment has arrived when our assumptions must be abandoned. The moment has arrived when we must decide who we are in the presence of something far greater, far older, and far more advanced than ourselves. 3I Atlas is waiting. And whatever comes next will define the future of humanity in ways we cannot yet imagine. Don't stop here. The universe is full of secrets waiting to be uncovered. Click on the next video and join us as we explore even more astonishing mysteries from the farthest reaches of space.